As an American, the idea of monarchy is kind of baffling, but for most of history, monarchies were the norm. Being no stranger to the political fringe, I was not surprised to find that there are indeed people and organizations around the world today who seek to restore long-dead monarchies, even in places where it seems antithetical. There are quite a few of these groups in quite a few places, so let's start in one of the most surprising places where monarchism still exists, the Western Hemisphere. Before we cover any countries, there's an organization I should introduce you to because they are going to show up a lot, the International Monarchist League. It was founded in 1943 as the Monarchist League by John Edward Basil Corbin. He founded the league in the middle of World War II. The organization claims that it was founded to preserve monarchies in Europe that were under threat from the communists. In their defense, this was a legitimate concern. All the countries in the Balkans were monarchies and sided with the Nazis in the war because they feared the Soviets more, and some would argue rightfully so. When the Soviets occupied Eastern Europe after the war, they replaced all the governments with communist regimes, thereby displacing all the monarchies. This group state that its purpose is to support the principle of monarchy. Included in this is support for claimants to vacant thrones. This group is present in the Americas, and we'll come back to them later. Encompassing much of modern days Argentina and Chile is the Kingdom of Patagonia. It was created by a French lawyer-adventurer, Orly Antoine de Tounons, in the 1860s. The regions claimed for this kingdom were the lands of the Mapuche people in South America. De Tounons was sympathetic to their cause, but believed that they would be taken more seriously if they had a monarch uniting them. De Tounons managed to set up a small confederation of Mapuche tribes, until the Chilean and Argentine governments crushed their upstart kingdom. De Tounons was captured but not executed because he was deemed to be insane by the courts. So instead of execution, he was deported and died penniless in 1878. Before he died, he appointed a champagne salesman as his heir, and since then the throne has been passed down more or less by voluntary exchange. The most recent claimant to the throne is a French veteran, Jean-Michel Paracelite de Para, and he styles himself as Prince Antony IV. To this day, no other country recognizes his kingdom, and he is ignored by Mapuche groups in South America. Next, we move up to Brazil. There's a piece of history that most Americans are unfamiliar with in Latin America. When we think of independence movements, we think of the throwing off of foreign monarchs and establishing republics. But in reality, there were a handful of monarchies that were set up, and Brazil was one of them. Brazil became independent from Portugal after the Napoleonic Wars. Newly independent Brazil was stylized as an empire, and the first emperor was Pedro I, son of King John VI of Portugal. He ruled until 1831, when the crown passed to his son, Pedro II. He oversaw the eventual abolition of slavery in 1888, and due to numerous issues, the military overthrew the government in 1889 and proclaimed a republic, which turned out to be more of a dictatorship that would last until the end of the Cold War. Descendants of Pedro II have maintained their claim to the throne of Brazil since the dissolution of the monarchy. For over a century, the family has campaigned for the return of the crown, and in the not too distant past, there was an opportunity for the monarchy to do this. In 1985, democratic rule was restored, and in their constitution there was an article that called for a referendum to be held in 1993, so the people of Brazil could choose what kind of government they wanted, and one of these options was a restoration of the monarchy. The royal family campaigned for the restoration, but by this point the monarchy had been out of power longer than it had been in power. The Monarchists only managed to get 13% of the vote, resulting in Brazil remaining a republic. There are currently two claimants to the throne, Prince Luís of Orleans-Braganza and Prince Carlos of Orleans-Braganza. Luís has claimed the throne since 1981 after the death of his father. Pedro Carlos has only claimed the throne since 2007. Both are great-great-grandchildren of Pedro II. The dispute comes from Pedro Carlos's grandfather, Pedro de Alcántara, who renounced his right to the throne in order to marry a lower-ranking noblewoman. He did this to satisfy his mother, who claimed that this marriage would not be valid for dynastic succession. Because he renounced his right to the throne, the branch of the family that Luís is from claimed the right of succession. Pedro Carlos argues that because the Constitution of the Empire of Brazil didn't forbid succession to children conceived in a union with a lower-level noble, the marriage of his grandfather was legitimate, and therefore the renunciation null and void. He began making this claim in 2007 and has been a rival with Prince Luís ever since. If you'd like to learn more about another political fringe movement, then go ahead and click this annotation. Or if you want something that's more long form, I just started a new podcast and I'm putting the episodes on YouTube, so go ahead and click this annotation for that. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to comment, share, and subscribe.